1,000. $2,000.
Jeez.
$1,050. Wow.
Ms. Hazeltine, would you mind muting yourself?
Where's my 1,000? See.
Just a heads up for everybody, we've started the recording and the live stream.
All right, we gotta stop because we're starting that.
Is it on?
It's on.
Outside.
One, two, three. I guess we have a quorum. Tim, are you at home?
Yeah. Did you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I don't want to be. I'd rather be out traveling.
That's what I was wondering. Like, wait a second.
I'm leaving soon. I was in 25 different states last year. I want to break that this year.
Good for you if you like it. I don't mind traveling, but that's a little too much. At least for me, but oh well. Okay. I was just thinking that was Betty. We might actually start at 7 o'clock. Joe, you need to unmute yourself though. As does Hal.
Done.
Okay, thank you. So I will call the March 25th, 2021 Town of Northwood Planning Board meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Subject to the following statement. As chair of the Northwood Planning Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this body is authorized to meet electronically. Members of the board will introduce or announce themselves and state whether there is anyone in the room present with them for right to know requirements. In whatever order you like.
Joseph McCaffrey, no one here but the squirrels, and yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
Lee Baldwin.
Is there anyone with you, Lee?
Nah.
Jennifer.
Billy Smith.
Okay.
the cat.
Go ahead, Hal.
Operator, my wife is here with me, Irene.
Bob Strobel, chair, and I am in my office alone. Okay, and just double checking, all members present are on the voting designation. We have minutes of March 11th. Pardon me?
No.
And just if you are a member of the public who's in the meeting, if you would please mute yourself when we have time or an out call for public comment. I will announce that and give you a chance to speak. But in the meantime, just please mute yourself. Where are they? There we are. We have minutes of March 11th to go over, and I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we'll go with Betty Smith as motion and Tim Jandeberg as second. Discussion on the minutes of March 11th.
I have a couple.
Sure, go ahead.
On page 2, line 4. That's yes, that question was told that has been for many years a group. I wish you would put in that there has been. So insert there, that there has been for many years a group of property owners.
Tell me what line that was again.
Line 4, page 2.
Thank you.
And was told that has been for many years a group, but I think it needs to be that there has been for many years a group. Go to the next one.
Hang on, sorry. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So if you look at 18 and 19,
Page
I'm
2,
confused.
which
I'm
page?
sorry.
Which page?
2.
Okay,
2.
sorry.
I'm confused with they. So on 18, Mr. Burden stated that they have received an application from Chestnut and Cape regarding the elderly housing. They are going to schedule. So who are the second they? It would indicate that they being Mr. Burden. The second they is Mr. Burden, but really I don't think it is. I think that the second they is Chestnut and Cape.
Oh yeah, on this line 2, staff. Why don't we change it to staff is going?
Okay,
Is that
that would be fine.
Yeah.
Just to clear out who the second they are.
sure?
Meaning the two theys are not the same group
Yeah,
of people.
I'm not the only one on the board to make that approval, but that's what makes sense to me. So go ahead.
Okay, so line 22. So I did not receive this email, so I don't know what it's regarding, but Chairman Strobel stated that the Selectman Kreider has sent an email regarding the Owners Association for the new condos being able to reinforce any monitoring. So it just, to me, that was confusing. An email regarding the Owners Association for new condos being able to enforce any monitoring. What does that all mean?
I believe it's monitoring of.
I think it was
yeah.
in the context of
Like
the
not a condition.
limited, the minimum rental stay.
Yes.
I think it is probably better to rephrase that sentence as the condo association would be responsible for enforcement of the condo documents.
Then I would understand it.
Okay.
And I think,
So for clarity, that would be Chair Stoverville stated the Selectman Kreider has sent an email regarding the Owners Association. Sorry, and James, what did you refer to?
The owners association or the condo association are the ones responsible for enforcement of the condo documents.
Okay.
So that may not have been precisely what was said, but that was.
it
the
says
gist
they're
of what was
monitoring, but it
intended.
doesn't say what they're monitoring.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the enforcement, a document would be fine. Something. And last but not least, on page 3, line 1, enforceability of condo documents and how that document relates to the other things there. So if you go back to the previous page, I'm sorry, reading from the beginning. Yeah, so town administrators should be involved in period. Mr. Burden stated that general enforceability of condo documentation and how that document relates to other things that they approve. The line doesn't make any sense unless you put in considering. In other words, enforceability of condo documents and considering how that document relates to other things they approve, that they approve. It's just.
Okay. I don't have any problem with
And
that.
all I'm trying to do is I look at a lot of minutes over the years and I'm just making it so that somebody else can understand what we're saying in the minutes in 5 years.
Agreed.
Okay. That was it on me.
That's my purpose of edits as well.
Okay.
And I'm not any point to have any comments on any of those.
They all look good to me, or sound good to me.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so we're just adding, I have it on page 2, line 9, adding considering how that document relates.
Right.
Susan, are you good with those as we've, okay. Laid them out, that's always good to hear. Any further discussion on the minutes?
Motion amended
Okay,
as
Tim,
corrected.
do you want to amend your second, or second your seconded, however you want to amend the second to amend the minutes?
No.
Okay. Any further discussions? Susan, I can do a roll call vote, please. On the amended
Tim?
minutes.
Yes.
Al,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes,
Betty,
Yes,
Lee,
Yes,
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, thank you. First up tonight is case 18-13 and 19-20, Millstone Realty Trust and Ledgewood Realty Trust. Do we have a representative of this application in the meeting? I don't believe we do.
Linda, did you end up hearing from Mr. Holden?
Linda, you're muted.
I believe she did hear from him.
Sorry. Yes, I
Okay.
did.
Okay,
And they intend to continue?
They intend to continue.
okay. Thank you.
So I'll be very brief then. I did send 2 documents related to this case to all of you, as well as the applicant, and then Winnie Young requested a copy as well. One of them is a staff report that has the normal heading, but is basically entirely devoted to a set of proposed conditions of approval. I have structured them as I would propose them to appear in the notice of decision. And then the other document is a few tracked changes of language that currently exist in the plan set itself. The vast majority of that tracked change language is the language that appears on sheet 2A that's labeled conditions of approval. I apologize that those took longer to get out to all of you than we had hoped. Yeah, I finished my comments about a week and a half ago, but we felt that it was important to check my work and send it through legal review before releasing to all of you and to the applicant and the public. So we checked with Walter and we did that. The language that's in that document is all mine, but it has been reviewed and considered by legal counsel, and she did not suggest any additional changes.
just before Hal, give me a second, Hal. Just for members of the public, if you are in the meeting, please mute yourself. When we open public comment, we'll give you plenty of time to unmute yourself and if you would like to speak. Just we're getting some feedback. Thank you. Go ahead, Hal. You're muted.
James, we got a note from Winnie Young, or a Word document from Winnie. And I guess, Bob, if I can ask this question, fine. If I can't, then we wait. But I'm just wondering whether all your comments, edits, and changes reflect what Winnie had in terms of her list of issues or concerns.
I believe that my comments sort of anticipated and have addressed the issues that she raised in that letter, but ultimately it's up to you to determine whether I have done so adequately. And obviously I don't want to speak for Ms. Young to to confirm her understanding. But absolutely read my comments with hers in mind. And I would imagine the next time that we discuss this case, we would discuss whether there are any further changes that need to be made.
Okay, so Winnie, has Winnie seen your edits then?
She received them probably 15 minutes after you did.
Okay, okay. On stuff like this, my preference would be to be able to check each one of those items off, given that it's coming from another committee, and make sure that we understand that either what's been changed or how it's been addressed.
Understood.
Yep. And, when we've had more of a chance to go through the details, Winnie or Ms. Young will have a case to go through the details as well before the next time we hear it, and then we'll all have a chance to talk about it. So I would, Linda, I assume that was a request for continuance from Mr. Holden.
Yes.
Okay. I would entertain a motion. Let me see. Let's run through the calendar. We have April
8th is your work session. April 22nd would be the general meeting.
And
He did request to the 8th.
he did request to the 8th. Okay. We will also have secondary meetings, or the second meeting of the 2 new cases tonight, I believe. So just be aware of that. So I would entertain a motion to continue case 18-13 and 19-20 to April 8th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion? Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, thank you for that. Next up is case 19-6, Joseph Carter Fatherland Family Trust. And do we have a representative in the meeting for the applicant? If so, please unmute yourself and draw my attention, since we have a good many people attending. I'm not hearing anyone.
Susan, were you able to get a hold of Mr. Carter?
Now, I sent him an email and left him a phone message. So,
Yeah.
The updates for this case, staff has forwarded you a series of communications between Mr. Carter and myself over the last few months to sort of give you the thread of the conversations that have been happening related to this case. If Mr. Carter is not present tonight, I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail about what his current proposal is. But I will say generally that currently, the last that I heard from him was that he was hoping to phase his approval in some fashion and come back to the board for a sort of phase 2 approval to finish up the site. I have not seen enough information to be comfortable with the details of how he's proposing it. And I'm not convinced that I am comfortable with that mechanism at all. But I would prefer to discuss those details with Mr. Carter and see if we can find an appropriate way to proceed. The other thing that has come in, and this came, I believe, earlier today, NHDOT District 6 has issued a driveway permit for this. Did we forward that to the
Yes.
board yet? You did receive that? Okay.
I did receive I release saw it. I think that was in the,
It was in the list of communications.
Was it? Okay.
yes.
Mr. Appleton did request that we pay particular attention to the conditions that they have imposed on that permit. Specifically, there is a drainage easement on the site. And it sounds like the final conversation between Mr. Carter and NHDOT was that there would be no permanent structure of any importance on top of that easement area. So we will want to make sure that that easement area is both depicted and not built upon in a final site plan approval. Other than that, I don't have anything else really. We need to figure out next steps with Mr. Carter.
Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to, let me talk dates. I'm thinking offhand if of April, that would end up being the 22nd, I believe.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion on continuing case 19-6 to April 22nd. Hearing none, Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Tim,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay. Next. Flying through. Goodness. Next up is case 19-12, Michael Sullivan, Aroma Joe's. And I believe Mr. Sullivan is with us, if he would want to unmute himself.
I'm recusing myself.
Okay. And Ms. Baldwin is recused from the meeting and removed from voting designation. All other members remain at this point in time. Mr. Sullivan, welcome back.
Thank you.
Why don't you give us an update on where things stand, since you didn't get much of a chance to do so last time.
So we have received back a comment from the board, from the New Hampshire DOT District 6, which I think that the board has received also maybe through the town planner.
I received a copy. I'll make sure the board gets it if you have not.
I don't think we
I'm
have.
seeing Hal shaking his head, so I may not have forwarded yet.
Yep.
And if not, that's my fault, and I apologize.
And so we are working towards implementing the comments that are like District 6, New Hampshire DOT District 6, and New Hampshire DOT. And so we're asking for a continuance till the next meeting, we think that we should be a little further along in that.
Okay. Sounds fine. Thank you for that update.
Thank you.
At this point, looking at,
Just to
We're
say,
at-
Bob,
yeah, go ahead.
is
Go ahead,
that,
Joe.
I assume that's the next regular meeting Mr. Sullivan is
Yes,
referring to? Okay.
I got a head shake from him or approval from him, and thinking the same, that we'd be looking at April 22nd for that. So I would entertain a motion to continue case 19-12 to April 22nd.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Motion by Ms. Betty Smith. We'll give it to Tim this time. Second by Mr. Jandeberg. Discussion? Hearing none. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Betty,
Yes.
Al,
yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Joe,
Hi.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay.
So very
We'll see you in a month then. Thank you. Okay. That's our old cases. We're up to new cases. I had figured we'd be at least 7:45 by this point in time. Knock on wood. Let me make sure I'm on the right spot here on my computer. Okay, next up is, this was submitted as 2 separate applications involving the same site. So we will call the site plan for 21-4 for Chestnut and Cape at the same time as we will call the subdivision for case 21-4 for Chestnut and Cape. I will read the abutters list. The abutters list as supplied by the applicant is almost the same and comprehensive. So it will be read once. As far as the planning board goes, decisions, they will be issued separately as needed for site plan and subdivision. We are not there quite yet. Let me get my papers in order here. And first up, Ms. Baldwin has rejoined the meeting, I believe, and is added to the voting designation.
Yep.
Okay. So first up for 21-4 is the issue of completeness. We got papers earlier. We had a chance to see them, well, not 2 weeks ago, but I would entertain a motion to find 21-4. James, should we do completeness separately?
I think for the issue of completeness, you could do both applications once. If you want to be super formal, you can handle them separately.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, I mean, for decisions, definitely they need to be separate. I think for applications, just wanting to double check on that.
Yeah, I think that the record for these is going to be very blended in any case. I think that, you know, differing amounts of information have been provided, so each application is missing 1 or 2 items that I think Mr. Oliva may be intending to submit as he moves the conversation forward with this application. I think for the purpose of completeness and beginning the board's jurisdiction, we have sufficient information to get started. So I would recommend finding both applications complete.
Just wanted to double check on that since it's a little slightly different procedure. I would entertain a motion to find case 21-4 site plan and subdivision complete.
So
If somebody wanted to make it.
Second,
So I believe that was Betty Smith who made the motion.
That was.
Okay, you can give a head nod too if you want, that's fine. Motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Mr. Kreider to find 21-4 complete. Discussion. hearing. And just as the board is aware on procedures, if you want to get my attention, wave your arms, nod your head, something to that effect. And my video just crashed. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just double checking. Susan, could do a roll call vote, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Tim? Tim?
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, I will formally open case 21-4 and read the abutters list. If you are in a butter in the meeting at this point in time, please, in preparation for that, because I like to know who is present, please unmute yourself. When I read your name, please get my attention, just so I can mark you as present. Linda Clement of Northwood. I believe it's Esau Stanley of Derry. Jeffrey and Tracy Cooley of Northwood. Gordon and Bessie Rankin Page of Northwood.
Here.
Thank you. Linda Clements of Northwood. I believe it's Esau Stanley of Derry. Am I getting feedback? Jeffrey and Tracy Cooley of Northwood. I'm not reading that. Gordon and Bessie.
That's coming
Rankin
from
Page of
Mr.
Northwood.
Fieldhouse's.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody's
Thank you.
watching the YouTube video.
Somebody's watching the YouTube video. Yes.
Good to know that YouTube is a few seconds behind us.
Yeah. Okay. I believe it's Esau Stanley of Derry. Feedback? Yeah, we're getting feedback. Can we turn the volume down on the TV or the
Okay,
computer
so
thing?
He muted himself. I think it's resolved.
Yeah. Okay.
I muted him, but I still hear it. Is it?
It stopped now.
Okay.
Technological.
Seems to be okay.
That's not what I expected. Okay. Let me continue on. Matter Corson Homestead of Northwood. Town of Northwood is present, Mr. Kreider. Everett and Sherilyn Brown of Northwood. Magoon Revocable Trust, Michael Magoon, trustee of Northwood.
Present.
Thank you. And Town of Northwood is here. Susan and Jeffrey Feldhaus. I believe they were, yes, he is here. I can see his name. Even though he's muted, I'll count him in. Trustee of Northwood. Okay,
Present.
thank you. We got you, Mr. Feldhaus. If you
Yeah,
could
I'm
put
here.
your stuff again, thank you. I'm gonna try this. James Korobacalis of Northwood.
Rubicalis.
Thank you. Is he present?
No.
Okay. I thought that was Linda. You can tell I'm not looking at my computer. Ralph and Kimberly Blackie of Northwood.
Present.
Thank you. Daniel Woods of Northwood. MDR Rehab and Development of Goffstown, New Hampshire. Megan Alexander of Northwood.
Present.
Thank you. Jason and Heather Johnson of Northwood.
Present.
Thank you. Douglas and Patricia Wyckoff of Northwood. Matthew Kessner and Martine Canfield of Northwood. Mr. Kreider, you're a busy person. I think this is the fourth time we've come up with the town of Northwood as an abutter to this. The Azeltine Revocable Trust, Sally and David Azeltine trustees.
Present.
Thank you. Fifth time for Northwood. Matthew Kessner and Martine Canfield. They've already been called. Okay. Thank you for the abutters who are here. We will open public comment later in this case, and you will be given an opportunity to speak at that point in time. And we have, I believe, Mr. Oliva and Mr. I think he's in the meeting. Let me look. Mr. Curtis Nalid is with us.
Valid.
Nalid, thank you. Takes me more than once to get it right. Do we have any other members of the applicant's representatives here?
Nope, I believe that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Oliva, why don't you give us a go ahead, or Mr. Nalid, if you would, whoever prefers to.
Sure. If it's possible to share my screen or ask to go to a page.
I think Susan can arrange that.
Sure thing. All right. So I'm gonna start off with the site plan. What we're proposing here is we're in our initial meeting with the project that we had a concept review back last year for this property off of Old County Road, or Old Canterbury Road, I'm sorry, and where we are proposing to develop the lot to create 21 elderly 2-bedroom houses that are duplexes. We have the project that would be coming in off and create a loop road to be able to have access into the property to create the drives around the area. We have, we're provided a base plan that we've used to start with the concept of design. We've conducted additional test pits out on the property and have met with representatives from the New Hampshire DES Alteration of Terrain to discuss the project's impact on stormwater drainage and areas like that. We do have some items that are missing from the application package, such as a lighting plan. Right now, we're anticipating probably not doing any kind of site lighting on here, and just being able to have kind of a conventional front door light or garage light. Oh, I'm getting some reverb. A little bit, no light poles out there. We're working on a landscaping plan where we want to, where we have items that meet the ordinance requirements, but want to also listen to the butters' comments and concerns on this. I'm going to change my share here.
Just, well, give me a second, Mr. Oliva. For members of the public or abutters, please mute your microphone. We're getting some feedback. If you haven't done so already, go ahead.
Okay, great. The image on the screen here is an image of each typical unit. They're all 2 bedrooms as required by the zoning ordinance for the elderly housing provision. They are duplexes, so they're mirrored images on left and right on this side. So as you can see, they have a room for a garage. There are 2 bedrooms. There's a living space, bathrooms, laundry room, and some storage. The applicant has worked on, let's see, everybody, can you see that kind of aerial image on your screen?
No, you stopped sharing your screen.
I did. Okay, let me get there. I hit the wrong button. That's what I did. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right. So what we have here is the applicant has worked on an aerial image with a firm to develop a concept of how this development will look from different perspectives. Here is a perspective of the development in the field. showing the different buildings. This is an overview that is indicated similar to our site plan that shows the locations of the buildings and the roadways as proposed out through here with some landscaping shown on here. I think our idea is to, you know, as you can see by the buildings, keeping them, you know, a single story building, looking at that, keeping the visibility of the field, and then working on some interspersed landscaping between the buildings, and then also again to work with the abutters as needed for their concerns as well. This is a view looking across the field of the scope and size of what you would see. These are based on aerial images and also photographs of the area using the actual topography. Another view of the development from different areas, because we did listen to the discussions at the initial concept, where obviously the thought is that, you know, density is the density of the property here is different than a conventional subdivision with the elderly unit allowances. We'll move through here. This would be a view from the roadway as you're coming. I'm going to call it, I believe it's from east or looking west on, I'm sorry, looking west on the property along the road heading there. And then just some different views coming into the project. This is a view of what we show currently on the plan of a parking area for a community building. One of the front buildings out front will be a single 2-bedroom unit with a room for a community room. And that's what's shown here on this plan. In the back behind it, you can see the kind of the massing for the Northwoods Brewery that's out behind on the other side of the field. This would be a section looking at the areas of the roadways coming in through the section into the building. And then here is just another view of that area of the 3-dimensional view of the development as we come through the process. Going to kind of go back and share the site plan just to be able for folks to see that. I'm glad to answer some questions, but we've gone through answer as many questions as needed, but we've gone through the process here to make sure that this development meets the intent of the ordinance. There are some discussions and some questions that came through with the staff review, but we've gone through and we're meeting the ordinance requirements and the state requirements for stormwater controls that are not only quantity but also quality of stormwater that will leave the site through the property. I think, Mr. Chairman, I'll kind of look to questions and feedback from that side.
Okay. Just for notice, I did notice, or Susan noticed, that a couple of butters have joined the meeting. After I read your name, we will have a chance for you to speak later on once I open up public comment. But I want you to notice that I did see you here. Questions from the board, comments from the board?
Also, I'd like to see, Curtis, if there's anything that I've missed that you want to add to the project, add to the initial description, please let me know.
I'll try to keep quiet.
Okay.
And if you need me to stop sharing, just kick me out or tell me to stop.
Okay. It looks, I can pull up my own map, but I don't want to leave the screen. On the, I guess it would be the eastern side, because we're looking to the north, where the loop road joins Old Canterbury again across from the old cemetery. On the right-hand side, just above the, yes, that area, that is, oh, thank you. So drainage basin.
Yeah, we have a bunch of different infiltration basins to to be able to treat the stormwater as it comes off of the site and that's collected through some ditch lines and catch basins as it's directed into this area here. This is an infiltration basin that we have that's to the east of that roadway that leads out back onto the public road. But that's one of the different drainage structures that we have. In the plan set that was provided, we do also have details that indicate what those structures look like and how they're constructed. And I believe that if we kind of go to this sheet L3, there are a bunch of details here that describe the different features that are to be used for the grass filter basins that we have, and then the other infiltration basins that we're using for stormwater controls on the property.
Okay. And I noticed in the floor plan, there's a set of stairs on the inside. Are these story and a half, or what is the stairs go to where? Basement or upstairs?
Yeah. So some of the units will have basement access and potentially walkouts on there. So we're showing them, okay. And then and that's what that area would be for.
Okay. So is that a bonus room? I didn't know what a bonus room is.
Yeah, let me go to that. Share that one for you. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. No, that didn't help out that much.
Oh, it does say stairs to bonus room.
Yeah, that would be a bonus room if there is a basement area. There's Curtis, you can jump in here, but we weren't planning on the second floor.
Most of these units are going to be slab on grade. There'd be no basement. If there was a basement on the couple units that will require that would be the staircase to the basement. But it will also be a staircase to a room over the garage, okay, which would be set up as like a home office or a like a sure, study or TV room space.
Okay. Just double checking. I saw the window over in one of the renderings over the garage and was wondering about it. So that makes sense. That answers my questions for tonight. Anyone else from the board? Hal?
Yeah, I have a question in terms of the bonus room or whatever. What's the potential for that to get converted to a bedroom?
It's not. It cannot be used as a bedroom. There'd be no closet space. It's going to be one open room. And we're only allowed a 2-bedroom space. So it's not allowed as a room to be lived in.
I would like to ask a question too, Bob.
Go ahead, Joe.
Just maybe slightly along the lines of Hal's question, but we do have the 2-bedroom requirement as a maximum for elderly housing, but what in the future, how do I phrase this? What keeps this as elderly housing in the future? Let me put just a couple of questions all tied together, all meaning the same thing, as in case I'm not getting the idea through. But
okay.
So what keeps it the same as elderly housing? For instance, 10 years from now, somebody, if it gradually morphs into something else, that's one thought. What I realize there is, as I think I heard, I haven't seen them, but the kind of, I don't want to misname it, but condominium requirements for the site, which would have its own internal restriction. But I just want clarification in that area regarding future expansion of the use into a multi-family situation. Let's just put it that way. Okay, let me ask that, and then I do have one or two other questions. That's one thing at a time, I guess.
Are they all
Would you
related?
like me to answer that from the town's perspective, or hear what Mr. Leva has to say?
Well, I'm not so concerned about the residents there. I mean, they'll be doing their own thing, but I'm saying, yes, from the town's perspective, as we are allowing this as elderly housing, as is going to be built under the pretext or the, not pretext, that's really a wrong word, the auspices of elderly housing. And that has, larger legal description in it. So I want to know just how defined is this as it goes into the future?
Yeah, so from my perspective, there are two things that we would fall back on that would enforce this as remaining elderly housing. One would be the condominium documents themselves. We would expect that there would be limitations in those documents. And we have not received those yet, but when we do, we will be looking at them closely. So we will expect that those documents age restrict the housing to meet the definition of elderly housing that we have established. We would also expect, as we have discussed with some condominium documents previously, that enforcement of those would be incumbent on the neighborhood association in terms of the details, but we would expect a provision that they could not be amended without the approval of the Northwood Planning Board, so that something like an age restriction like that, or conservation of the open space that is also required of elderly housing proposals, could not be altered without our knowledge and permission. The other thing that would keep this elderly housing, even if something were to change with the condominium documentation, is the zoning ordinance. The elderly housing is the only housing type that permits more than one primary residential structure on the same parcel. And the applicant is proposing, as part of this proposal, to merge all lots associated with this into one parcel. So it would be condominium style ownership on one piece of land. So those houses, once they are built, have to continue to comply with the zoning ordinance and could not be used in a manner that our zoning ordinance would not allow as general purpose residential. And that would be enforceable by the town as a violation of our zoning ordinance if they were used in a way that did not meet our definition of elderly housing. So between those two things, we would feel comfortable that either the applicant would continue to play by the rules that are potentially going to be approved in this situation, or that there would be an enforcement opportunity to make sure that they got back into compliance.
Okay, thank you, James. The part of the thinking I have is that, on the one hand, I think any landowner should have as liberal a aspect of doing what they wish, but obviously this is within a framework of not only our town ordinance, but being represented here is it that this is elderly housing, is for a specific use. And there are certain advantages when one asks for that. When one is proposing that's what it is, then you're getting advantages in return under the conditions we have as the town of Northwood. And so I would like to see, for consistency, not just at the moment, and I think you covered that, James, pretty much, as long as the condominium documents represent what's being offered here, but that in the future, this doesn't get changed. I mean, none of us will be on the board 10 years from now. I know that for certainty. Maybe I won't say for everyone, but I can speak for most of us, I think. And there's going to be other people in the future that may or may not remember or care or whatever. And so it just needs to be spelled out, I think, clearly, what is the current asking and how it's going to go forward. Now, having said that, and I think you covered it, James, but if the applicant wants to add anything to that, that would be great. though have another question. If I could go, Bob, or should I wait?
Well, Hal's had his hand up for a bit.
Okay, I'll wait.
I'm gonna give him a shot.
Well, it follows on with Joe's, so I appreciate getting the chance to speak now. I just worry about the enforcement. I know I had those questions about the condo and the issues with are people renting it out more frequently than just on a week-to-week basis. And so I guess my question is in regards to the condominium documents and how it relates to the town. Can we require the condominium documents and the condominium association to provide a report each year, notarized or certified, that says the people living there are the right age and that they are only using 2 bedrooms?
Well, Mr. Lever, Mr. Nally, you can.
EPA. You know, the EPA said.
So I have never heard of a compliance report for age restriction. That is something that I could look into. Reporting things like that do occur, for example, where units are rent controlled. There would need to be subsequent reporting on the incomes of the people who are renting there if they're required to be low income. So there are similar mechanisms. I've just never heard of them being used for age restriction. So that's something I could research further. But under a condominium style situation, the town should also receive that information.
Like I said, these are condos are a sold item, and assessing would receive a copy of a change of ownership, or the town would receive a copy of the change of ownership.
Yeah, look, I'm the select board member. I'm trying to reduce the work on the town.
Sure.
And the way to do that is to have the applicant or the condo association bear the burden of doing all that and providing the report.
Well, not being a real estate or an attorney or anything, the one aspect that comes to mind is that the sale is being sold as as in an age restricted development. And well, anyway, go ahead, James.
So I think in general, if that's something that Mr. Kreider would be interested in pursuing and the board is willing to consider it, we typically request and recommend that the board send the condominium documents for third-party review by town legal counsel anyway. So I would suggest that if you would like to, also ask the question to town legal counsel as to whether reporting like that is something that would be within your purview to insist upon, or even if the applicant was willing to voluntarily accept it, whether it's something that makes sense. I would suggest that we forward that question to town legal counsel at that time alongside the condo documents as they're proposed.
Let's get the condo documents in hand first, and then we can deal with it.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not there. So
the thing that I'm consider is, and you see this all the time. The grandparents buy the grandchild a condominium. So yeah, the person buying the condo is the right age, but the people living there aren't. You see it all the time.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
may I add
Linda.
a comment, please?
Yes, go ahead, Linda.
We currently have age-restricted condominiums in town now.
Correct.
We also have age-restricted mobile home park that I know was age-restricted when I moved to Northwood in the early 80s. And I can tell you, I receive a lot of complaints about different things, but in my 30 years working for the town, I have never received a complaint from someone saying that there was a person that was not age restricted living in either the mobile home park or the condominium or, so I think it self-enforces. I think that the folks that are in that development, if they start seeing kids out playing on bicycles out on the sidewalk, they're gonna call the town of Northwood. But
Yeah,
we
Oh,
have,
but-
the mobile home park has been at least 40 years and there's still all elderly people living there.
Let's,
That's Northwood though. And
Just a thought.
okay,
Just,
but,
It's
just,
a board decision, and I got to tell you, in other communities, you see it.
okay. Let's get the condo documents in hand before we, so we can at least see what's being proposed. Okay, other questions, comments from the board?
I do.
Go ahead, Tim.
So I just want to say quick that I agree with Linda that it's self-policing, but I think the word bonus room is unfortunate. I wish they hadn't used that word. So I would like to see a complete floor plan, meaning it appears to me that there could be a second floor that's 2/3 as big as the first floor. And if so, I would like to see the floor plan showing that. I mean, if you look at the size, if you look at, well, they didn't number the pages in the book. I wish they had, because they say go to page whatever. But the page that shows all of the housing, you're looking down over the whole housing complex. You can see that the roof over the garage goes clear to the back of the building. And it's at least 2/3 of the size of that half of the condominium, not that, yeah, well, there,
Yes.
see that? I mean, it's most of the building could potentially have a second floor, and if so, I'd like to know about it.
It's playroom for the grandchildren.
Exactly. Moving in.
Well, I wasn't thinking of moving in. I think that's been addressed.
I'm just kidding, but I just would like to see a complete set of blueprints on what's going to be built there, not just the one floor.
We can do that.
Okay. So noted. Okay. Other questions?
I would
Sorry.
second Tim's observation, just that, and it's, I can figure it out, but as I was thumbing through, there's references to pages, but you actually have to count the pages to get to, just as you're going through. Unless, I mean, I assumed it was my failing eyesight, so I wasn't noticing the fine print. But in any case, minor issue. I'll number them myself after I go through it again.
So noted. Thank you.
But
hang on, Joe. Because I'd like to address this. I think what I would appreciate seeing on the plan on this topic is, even if it's a matter of providing I'm fine with the floor plan that you have, but if you noted the units that, shading or something, ones that had a basement or ones that had a bonus room, that would help me. I think that might clarify what the others are asking for the board.
I would second that thought.
Okay. Go ahead, Joe. You had another question.
Yes, when we talked, when the proposal stage was before us, the idea stage, there was some concern expressed in various forms about the road, for one, immediately that accesses the old Canterbury Road, which is an unimproved or a gravel road, let's call it. What is it, class 5, Linda, or class 6? I'm not thinking.
Class 5.
Class 5, yeah. And I was, so I would like that, there was some talk, both by the applicant as to keeping that in mind. I didn't hear a hard proposal of anything other than as it meets 106 out there.
107.
I mean 107. I'm saying wrong. Yeah. The and that is that little intersection has a little bit of very broken up paving on it. There was some talk of addressing that by the applicant, if I understood correctly, but maybe not. But anyway, I'd like clarification on it, and perhaps how I grant that, and this was talked about earlier, that there isn't going to be the same kind of traffic that you might have from a larger family in each unit situation, and that there would be a lower traffic volume. I accept that to an extent, but there's going to be clearly added traffic from 20 some odd units. And so I'd like to hear a little bit of how, because the town maintains this road. We're going into mud season right now, and anybody who's not familiar with it knows that things get dicey for a while. And so what's the prospect of addressing that from the applicant? And of course, out to the main exit, which everybody seemed to be focusing on, and that was 107. So I'd like to hear a little more about that.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Oliva.
Sure. What we look to do in our narrative, and it will be reflected on the plans in the future, is looking at very close to where our first driveway in is where the paved section ends, and it goes to gravel. What we're looking to do is pave the interconnection on Old Canterbury between the two, work with the road agent to determine where is the appropriate location to stop that paved improvement after our development, and then work with the road.
Excuse me, if I could just to clarify what you just said. After our development, you mean going east or going west towards the 106?
I'm going to just.
I mean 107. I keep going.
Let's pull up the overhead or the.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to zoom in. So there's existing paved road that comes up real close to where our first entrance is, up right here on the left-hand side of the screen. Is that we would work on improving the roadway and paving the roadway from this section here where we connect down through across our frontage here along this side, and then work with the road agent to see where the proper termination would be over here on the eastern side of the edge of that development on this side, and then also look at what the road agent has to say for comments for the connection at the end of the road here at Route 107. Knowing that predominantly most of the traffic is going to come to this intersection and to access town and move around, as opposed to continuing and coming out of the development, making a right onto Old Canterbury Road and heading up the hill that way. Most of the people are going to come in here and make a left-hand turn and go to that intersection with 107. And then getting into the question regarding traffic generation, yes, based on the traffic, the ITE, which is the International Traffic Review information that provides the counts for usage, the senior adult housing has a lower trip generation than a conventional single-family residence. And we did provide information in the package that talks about the breakdown for what these trips are and how that looks. I can provide additional information at the request and work with town staff to give you more of a comparison, but we did review that aspect of traffic generation in the submission.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify the last item that you said, do you know, just offhand, I agree, or at least not agree, but I know what you said reflects that the truth of the fact that elderly housing has a lower trip generation. But do you know if it's what percentage it is? Let's just say, do you know how that, instead of just certain numbers in this case, is it like a 50% situation or whatever?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say it's at least a 40% reduction, if not more than that. And when I stop sharing the screen, I'm going to pop on to the technical information that we have and pull up what a conventional single-family residence has for traffic generation in a trips per day, and compare that to the trips per elderly housing. I for some reason I have this number of 6 trips per day per single family in my head. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I do, just looking at the paper in front of me here for the elderly housing, it's 3.23 for a Saturday trip per day. So I don't want to mislead or say something until I can pull that information up, but there is a reduction in that, and I can get that information to town staff and to have to you folks at the next meeting.
That'll work.
Well, I appreciate that. So you're saying 50, but you said for Saturday. I mean, the weekday figure would be important.
Joe, let Mr. Leva get the information, and then we can.
Yep, I got it. I'm
Okay,
just saying.
thanks.
Yeah. Weekday does control. That is 3.7 average trips per unit in elderly housing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the board? Okay. I noted, and Susan noted, that some abutters had joined after we read the abutters list. What I'd like to do at this point in time is a couple more announcements. As per the COVID-19 pandemic, the planning board has moved to a 2-meeting format, in that tonight we are opening the case. We'll have introductory statements, questions from the board. We'll open to statements from the abutters. In general, few, if any, decisions will be made tonight that allow, and then we'll continue the case to a date and time specified in the future. That gives abutters and members of the public a chance to both, and the applicant, both to respond to board's questions and comments, provide that information, and those are available to the public. It also gives a chance for abutters and members of the public who wish to comment on it, a chance to get those comments after the initial opening hearing to the town, so we can, the board can receive them at before the second meeting. That second meeting has not been determined as yet, but just want to clarify that. What I'll do at this point is I would like to take a 3-minute break before we get into the public comments for the abutters. And what I'll do is read the names of, well, I'll deal with those in a couple minutes. Okay, but that'll be what's up next. So we're on a recess for at least until 8:12.
Oh, I gotta take a piss myself.
We are still recording and live on YouTube despite being on recess, just as an FYI.
Thank you. I was about to say that.
Yeah, I think you need to.
That's my first name, not my last name, right there.
No, your name would show up.
Must be a lot of other people showing up too. I don't care. It's a public meeting.
Say, James, is it worth reminding certain people that their mics are open, or just let them live at their own risk?
But he did that.
That's Joe McCaffrey.
Started to cook my protein yet because I'm so sure that it's hot. Think of sea bass. Let's see how flaky it is. I know the texture of sea bass, so I feel confident.
Okay. We'll get comes back at this point. Why? Because I'm on the wrong screen. Okay, what I'd like to do, just because I know some joined in, I'm going to read the list of abutters that I have marked as present. And when I have completed the list of present abutters, if you are an abutter and you have not been marked present, please unmute yourself and let me know so I can mark you that way. I have as present Gordon and Bessie Rankin, Michael McGoon, trustee, Susan and Jeffrey Feldhaus, Ralph and Kimberly Blackie, Megan Alexander, Jason and Heather Johnson, David and Sally Azeltine. Are there others, butters, who, as names I did not just read?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mark,
okay. I thought I saw you, Miss.
I had technical difficulties.
That's okay. I thought I had seen you in here. Join us later. So you're in. I marked you in as present.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I will open the public hearing to abutters.
And Bob, for a question for what you're using this for, are you using that list to call on people to speak?
No.
Okay. Ignore me then.
Okay. I'm not planning on calling them to speak. It's more, I want to make sure that I like to know who is present as an abutter, and I'll open it up so that I can mark as, I like to put my comments next to who has spoken them. So at this time, if you are an abutter and you would like to speak on this case, please get my attention by stating your name.
Jeff Feldhaus.
Okay. Go ahead.
My question is, since we're all on well water, all the abutters, will this have any effect on the water pressure for the abutters?
Yep. Well, we're working on with the New Hampshire DES on this, and we have obviously the intent there is no, we do not want to have a negative impact on any abutters. And we're working with the New Hampshire Drinking Water Bureau to deal with that and the permitting with respect to that because this is a community system due to the number of units. And then they, the New Hampshire DES Drinking Water Bureau does review the project overall to make sure that it is can handle the flow and is not a detriment to abutting properties.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify, if you aren't a butter, please address your comments to me. If you have questions, I can pass them to the applicant. If you have a statement, that is fine. The applicant is not required at this point in time to answer your questions. If the board chooses to pass them along, we can do so, but it's more, this is our chance, the board's chance to hear from the applicant or the abutters for questions and concerns. Anyone else from as an abutter?
Yes, Sally Asseltine.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I have a couple concerns. One is this was the first I'd heard about this bonus room, and which essentially makes it a 1.5 story. And I've heard that addressed tonight, so I'd like to reinforce that concern. And that, you know, it talks about not having an obstructed view, but this is indeed an obstructed view of those fields. The other issue I have is the road issue. Where my property, the length of my property is on that stretch of road that they're talking about, the paved road that comes down to 107. And anyone who's traveled that road knows what a terrible condition the end of that road is. And that we gingerly come out of our road onto 107 because of the bad condition that it's in. So with 70 more cars or so coming down there every day, you know, how is that going to be improved so that can handle that amount of traffic? The other concern I have, and maybe this is something that the planning board needs to address in terms of the width of that road, and it essentially it's not a 2-lane passing road by any means. And that coming and going of traffic, as well as the access for fire equipment coming up through there, and the danger of being a narrow road. And if that needs to be widened, how is that going to be done and where is that going to be taken? So I do have a lot of concerns about that, the road that I'd like to see addressed.
Okay, thank you. I believe Mr. Oliva spoke about working with the road agent on the road improvements, at least for that earlier, but and I'm sure the board will be bringing that up again. Okay. Anyone else from the abutters list?
Hi, Bob. I'd like to speak.
Go ahead, Ms. Alexander.
I'd like to echo Sally's concerns about the width of the road and where that land is going to come from. And also, I don't know that we've heard much about any sort of studies or tests or whatnot about the environmental impact of this many units in such a small space and so close to the wetlands and all of that. And I just want to just express that, my deep concern for the actual environment and our health for, you know, impacting the groundwater and whatnot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other abutters?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to just input in there for the environmental impact. As part of the New Hampshire of a project of this size, this goes to New Hampshire DES alteration of terrain. Not only do they look at the stormwater controls is a big part of it, but now they are also looking at the impacts to wildlife and endangered species. And that is something that has been brought more to a front of the alteration of terrain. We have had a wildlife study report done, and that has been submitted to the New Hampshire DES for the Alteration of Terrain Bureau for part of this review. A copy of that is also at the town that has that wildlife report and that full submission that went to the New Hampshire DES for alteration of terrain.
Is that available to the town?
There is a copy that we provided to the town. Yes.
Thank you.
And I also believe we also gave the town a digital copy as well.
Perfect. Okay. Anyone else?
Jason Johnson.
Go ahead.
A couple of them are just echoing things that were already said. One, I think that it's very misleading in the application that it says there's no impact on view for the abutters. Like when you put 21 units in like 14 acres, how can you not impact the view? Second is, as others have said, the mischaracterization that they're single story dwellings. They're clearly not. We've heard that tonight. And then the condition of the road, but also nobody's talked about like, why would the planning board not ask for the entire road to be improved out the other end so that 70+ cars are splitting their exits out onto more main roads, especially considering that the 107 entrance is extremely dangerous. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that gentleman's name.
Jason Johnson.
Thank you.
Wow, something changed.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf, you are, okay. Anyone else from the abutters list who would like to speak?
Yeah, Ralph Blackie.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Blackie.
My question is, how much fill is going to be put into this field?
How much can it be?
How much can it be? Another question is the wetlands. Looking at the drawings of the houses, one of, I believe it was number 9, where that is going, there's a stream that runs right through that, right where that would be. That would be all filled in with, you know, that'd be taking up the wetlands right there. In the road, you said you want to have it paved. They said they want to have it paved from where the existing road is on 107 past, going to the east, past in the second driveway. Why pavement? Why just not keep the road the way it is? Make upgrades that way. You got a culvert there that needs a lot of work. I've submitted pictures of that culvert 2 years last year, and nothing has been done to that culvert. Nothing has been done to this road. Now all of a sudden things are going to be done to this road because they want to put 21 houses up and one big eyesore to you know, the environment here. And so that's my questions.
Okay, thank you. Others from the abutters?
This is Mike Magoon.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Couple questions. Kind of reiterate some of the things that were talked about, but one new question is, in terms of the roadway, is there anything that prevents or prohibits residents of said community to take a right onto Canterbury to go out that way that would not be paved, particularly what Ralph was just speaking about with that culvert? I spent a lot of time in that area. I was just there a few minutes ago, walking the road. And, you know, clearly there's a lot of bumps, a lot of potholes, mud season, just really tough to pass. I can only imagine more cars. but more concern would be the culvert for sure. And so while I appreciate the other proposed improvements, what would be the impact of vehicles choosing to turn right out of the development and not left? So that's one new question I haven't heard yet that I'd like addressed.
Okay.
Yeah. Second, and this was also stated, but my major concern would definitely be the wetlands. I appreciate the study that was done or would be done, and also that DES is involved with a major impact like this. But I haven't studied a lot of the streams there. Those aren't even streams, they're brooks. And there's quite a water system that also feeds into Northwood Lake, as we know. And my concern would be, to address any wastewater, or say there's a failed septic system or septic, that's quite a few units, or whatever work needs to be done to ensure that, the septic water or the gray water, any sewage, raw sewage wouldn't be running into there and ultimately into the lakes and the waterways. So that's just my concern, would be the wetlands. And I appreciate whatever studies would be done and verified and certified and approved by the state.
Okay. I mean, that is one of the requirements.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Others for abutters who would like to speak on or question, comment?
Can I speak, Martine?
Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm also concerned about the road, Old Canterbury is just a one-way road. And I'm concerned about how they would widen it, seeing as how my field is across the way. But otherwise, do the units have to be 2-bedroom? Because I don't know who they're marketing these senior units to. I'm concerned that somebody of the right age buys a unit and then one of their adult children has a housing issue and they come stay in the 2nd bedroom, maybe with a child, or maybe they bring a grandchild and they go to our school systems. So I realize that it would be deed protected, but I don't want the town to have to incur costs if we have to litigate to get school-age children out of the complex. So I'd rather see some of the units be 1-bedroom if it's possible, but 2-bedroom invites guests or having someone else move in as defraying costs. And I don't feel that it's self-enforcing because people get sympathetic. I think 2 years ago, there was a case in another state where it was a 55+ community and the grandparents took in a child because the parents had died in a car crash or something. So there was a whole big thing on the internet about, they should be nice and let the grandparents take in the child, but they're getting discounted taxes or they're not taking a lot of tax revenue to begin with. And we can't afford to have children be in this complex at any period of time. I'd rather the community center have some guest bedrooms that people could sign up for their guests to stay at, but I'd rather guests not stay in the actual 21 units for any period of time. So that's my main concern for the town in terms of costs, aside from maintaining the road, because it's not even the traffic of the old people, but there's going to be a lot of traffic during the construction of this project. Oh, the last thing is last year we were in drought conditions and everybody's well waters fell low, and a development like this is going to put a lot of pressure on the well water, in the good times. So anyway, that's my concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the abutters list?
Mr. Chairman, one more comment if I could, Mike Magoon.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just for consideration. My thought I wanted to share was with also light pollution. I know being in a butter of other businesses, that has affected us. I just live with it because I like to live and let live. But with my concern with additional units like this, a house is a house. But with light pollution, if there's lights, what do you call it, street lights or lamps, just being aware of that. I'm sure that's all part of the process, but just wanted to raise it for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Given the abutters a chance to speak, I will now open it to public comments to essentially, well, anyone who would like to speak on this application. Please state your name for the record, and again, address your questions or comments to the chair, and I can pass them along. This is for your comments are being considered by the board. If you have questions for the applicant, we can pass them along. And just let me know if you would like to speak. Going once. Going twice. That is not a final, and I say that not as a, there will be other opportunities to speak, not the only one. Okay, at this time, I will close public comment subject to reopening at a later point in time. And just note that Mr. Wolf, your microphone is not muted. If you would please do so. Okay. Thank you for your comments. I know I got myself some notes, and I know Mr. Oliva was busy writing stuff down. Mr. Kreider.
Yeah, if I could just add to the discussion regarding the water, you know, one of the concerns, obviously, as a town official, is our local businesses, and you know, you mentioned, Jeff, the brewery. I'm sure you're well familiar with it. So I think you're also familiar with its water usage. And we would really hate to see, you know, them get kicked in the butt from a water perspective use, especially after all the troubles they've had with COVID and stuff. So if there's some way to include that, you know, water need in your analysis, that would be much appreciated.
I do know that when the DES does a review of this, they're going to obviously look at the brewery because that's a high water use. They also look at, there's also another development that's down by the lake. That's another high water use in there. So they do look at the impacts on not only a commercial business, but I think more importantly, they want to make sure that residential abutters our concerns are met too.
Yeah. I understand.
And there is increased scrutiny for community wells.
And then the other thing I'd just like to mention, you know, Jeff, you said, you know, you're not anticipating pole lights and things like that. I personally would appreciate seeing, though, even relative to how you do the houses. I mean, our neighbors, when they turn on their outside lights, it's like daylight in our yard. And so I can appreciate the neighbors' concerns about, you know, how it might affect nighttime darkness and stuff, even if it's just lights off of a house. Because like I say, I see it myself every day.
Yep. I think what we'll come forward with additional information there is to indicate that any kind of lights will be downlit and shielded, so that we can minimize that splash of light into abutting properties and abutting neighbors. So if we can have and make sure that we're indicating shielded and downlit lights, that will definitely help with that spill, and make sure we're just, you know, we're illuminating the areas that we want to illuminate.
Yeah, I just mentioned it because you tend not to think of the house lighting as bad, but it can be a real nuisance.
That is one of the site plan requirements.
Yep.
So, as I know Mr. Levy knows. Go ahead.
Just to reinforce a little of what Al was saying, I often bring up lighting issues with certain projects that have been proposed, and they are not as important as whether you have a adequate water supply or some such, but they long term, I think, affect the quality of a neighborhood, an environment wherever somebody's living. I know that we have for new construction, we impose, or commercial, we impose some lighting strictures. But as you just referred to a moment ago, but and there is some consideration, as was with the brewery, but it's an ongoing issue, and it is. I would just, as Hal indicated, I would emphasize to the applicant, and they've reflected that they're sensitive to the situation. If I noticed on the plans, there wasn't a specific reference, but it was kind of left open. There was no lighting plan, of course, but it was left open as to what it might be in the future. And the suggestion was that it might be left very much as an individual residential choice, is the impression I got. But even at the residential level, and I realize you can't tell people much what to do in this regard, but a lot of neighbors are not aware, and if of their neighbors, and I see a lot of bright lights around town in various yards for various reasons, maybe good and bad. But if I were living next door, I would say something. Obviously, whoever is living next door to the ones I've seen, they don't care or don't wish to say something. But the awareness of this up front is important, especially with the concentration of dwellings. I think even if there were some kind of street lighting, Mr. Oliva suggested it would be very much, I think he was saying, a downlit kind of lighting that's now commercially done. And that would be very good, even with that, of not necessarily high concentrated light. Just because the overall impact of 20 lights all on at the same time, or however many street lights, would have, I think, not a optimum, I'm trying to choose words here, an optimum situation for the nearby residents. I don't know if any of them use bright lights. I mean, maybe they don't care, and maybe that's not an issue, but if I'm trying to think of just the general situation, if I were living there, I know people do care in some cases. That would be something to be sensitive to, among several things that we brought up here.
Yep. Okay.
And I think, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the thing that is helpful for this is that we have the applicant who's actually going to build all the houses, so that he'll have control over the lights that will go onto the building to make it consistent. And I think we can make sure that we indicate there on the site plan approval and other areas that we're going to make sure that the lights are shielded and downlit as required by the site plan ordinance, and that they maintain that way. Yep, go ahead, Kurt.
And so what we're going to do is we are going to put a switch and wire every neighbor's house to your neighbor. So you are paying for your neighbor's exterior light, right? So nobody wants to be paying for their neighbor's exterior light. We're all going to turn it off. Everybody's going to want the lights off because they don't want to pay the electricity for the neighbor to have the whole house lit up.
Well, that's an interesting idea. I think that you've got a very serious point, and I understand. I'm making a joke, but
well,
very good.
In a duplex, Mr. Nallard, that's makes a lot of sense. Okay. So noted. Okay. So I closed public comment. Any other questions from the board for tonight? Okay, I'm seeing head nods or head shakes.
Mr. Chair, if I could point out just one or two things with the staff report,
Sure.
just to have them into the record. One thing that I do mention in that is that there are locations of the interior circulation that are shown in the 50-foot setback. And again, the setback on this property is 50 feet as a dimension of elderly housing, not 20 feet for typical single family housing. The typical way we have understood and applied the definition of driveway is that a paved driveway is considered a structure and therefore has to abide by structure setbacks. An unpaved driveway is not a structure and therefore would be allowed to be within the setback. So I did just want to mention that because the symbology isn't really differentiating between what areas of circulation are paved or are not. So we would want to make sure that that's understood and clarified prior to final approval, or the necessary permissions to allow pavement in those areas are in place. Similarly, if permissions are required, there are some areas of that driveway circulation that are within the front setback. Driveways are exempted from the front setback, but my reading and my gut reaction to the spirit and intent is driveways are exempted from the front setback so they can get to and from the road. But that if you are branching your driveway off, that may not be what is meant by that exemption. So if that becomes an issue over pavement, that's something that you as the board should discuss your interpretation of that. If it comes to some of those other things that are within the front 50 feet needing to be relocated or required to be unpaved. And then finally, I wanted to point out to the board, we did have a staff only technical review committee meeting on this application, and there are comments from other departments included in my memo, specifically the road agent or the highway department and the fire department.
Okay. At this point in time, and I fell down on the job here, James, sorry, because the item number 2 was below my screen. I would entertain a motion to find that this application has no regional impact.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, sorry, it's been a while.
Tim?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. That is pretty much what I wanted to cover tonight. Thank you for your patience and understanding. At this time, I would like to schedule the next hearing of this, which would be April 22nd. We are on a 65-day, I should have explained that, it's been a while. When the application was opened earlier tonight and found complete, that starts a 65-day clock. The planning board has 65 days to render a decision, barring no requests for continuance from the applicant. So 65 days from today, something will be rendered unless we hear from the applicant that they would like to continue this case.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to qualify that slightly because the COVID-19 emergency orders, one of them from the governor did exempt municipalities from certain review deadlines, and it specifically cites planning board deadlines for timelines for site plan review and subdivision applications. I would say from a customer service standpoint, it is still our intent to comply with your standard rules and procedures and not to operate any differently. But I did want to point out that emergency order exists for the applicant's awareness.
Forgive me, I've been doing this 11 years, and before that was the case before this year. So, okay. So yes, James, I stand corrected. Okay, we will bring this up on the agenda next time on April 22nd. Thank you all. And the next case.
Mr. Chair, we do still need a motion from the board to continue. Yes.
Do?
Yes, you
Okay.
always need a motion from the board to continue to the date and time
I
certain.
request a
So moved.
down. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Kreider, second by Ms. Baldwin. Discussion. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Joe,
Aye.
Tim, Lee,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay. Officially on the April 22nd now. Thank you. Next case is 21-5 and 21-6, Glenn and Shirley Brackett. My papers here together.
Question, Bob.
Yes, go ahead.
Did we find that application complete?
21-4, the prior one? Yes, we did. At least I recall that we voted on it. Okay, and this is another, getting my papers here together, application where there are two separate applications that will be heard together. I'd like to follow the exact same procedure. I'll call both cases at the same time. I will read the abutters list. We verified that what the applicant provided, there is only one difference in status amongst the abutters in that the, so all names for both cases will be read, provided the board finds it complete. Okay. And I would entertain a motion to that effect from the board to find the app 25-1 and 25-6 complete. Motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Hal,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Tim. Tim. Oh, I'm sorry. Joe,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes. Okay. And just for, because I didn't do it yet, voting designation for is all board members present. So I will open case 21-5 and 21-6. Glenn and Shirley Brackett, Blakes Hill Road. At this time, I'll read the abutters list. If you are an abutter and you are present in the meeting, please, when I read your name, please speak so that I know you're here, just so I can record that you're present. It's my own notes. In this case, the difference between, whichever one I have up on top, 21-5 and 21-6 is Alan Wilkinson and Margaret McGoldrick is listed as one of the owners for the boundary line adjustment, which is 21-5. They are also in a butter for 21-6. Okay, abutters for both applications. Byron Peck of Northwood. Michael and Sherry Sweet of Northwood. Laurel and Dale Dean of Northwood. Jonathan and Crystal Balanoff of Northwood. Caitlin Emery and Christian Jurgel of Northwood. Clifford Midwood of Northwood. Christopher and Jackie Troy of Northwood. Mark and Michelle Minisali of Northwood. Frank and Christine Leonchik of Northwood. I'm thinking of, oh, sorry. The Benedict and Bernice Raphael Trust of Northwood. Gabriella Itigan and Manuel Ploe. Forgive me for your pronunciation on that. Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Michael and Cheryl Sweat are present.
thank you. My apologies. There's a typo on the list. Okay, let me correct that. Okay, Mr. Frankowitz is here representing the client or the applicant.
Yes.
And why don't you give us an overview of what is being proposed here?
Sure. Can I share my screen?
Go right ahead.
Everybody see that?
There we go.
So Scott Franco is from New Hampshire Land Consultants, and the other professional that worked on this is Damon Burt of Fraggle Rock Environmental, delineated the wetlands. I'll start, like the chair said, there's two applications here. One's a lot line adjustment, and then following that is a subdivision of the larger piece. The boundary line adjustment includes tax map 224 lot 7, which is 0.62 acres and 211 feet of frontage. And then tax map 224 lot 8-1, which is a large parcel, is 33.74 acres. The Brackets own 8-1 and Wilkinson's own lot 7. This plan shows the overall properties and the area of interest, which is the next page, is this area here. What we're proposing is a minor lot line adjustment of 9 feet along the frontage of the Wilkinson property to go to the Brackets. And then on the backside will be another 9-foot triangle piece that will be transferred to the Wilkinsons. That's 232 square feet exchanged equally. Neither of the areas will be used for building, so there's no reason to go to DES on this one. We're not reducing the size of the lot either. The reason for this is going into the next application is the Brackets would like to do a minor 2-lot subdivision on the 34 acres. And their original frontage was 291 feet. So they had to obtain 9 feet from the Wilkinsons to have the 150 feet per lot. What they're proposing is a 2-lot subdivision. This first lot, 8-1, will have 150 feet of frontage and 12.34 acres of property. And then the second piece will be the remaining land of the 34 acres with 150 feet of frontage and 21.39 acres of land. As you can see, a good majority of the property is wetlands on the backside, but there is plenty of buildable area up here. Even with these fingers, it's a large piece, so there's plenty of area to place a well, septic, and house. What we're proposing as well is a proposed shared driveway, as anybody who lives in the area knows that corner. We placed it in the location that you can see up Blake's Hill and then down Blake's Hill Road for the best vantage point. If we were to stay on the property line, there's a clump of trees right on this corner that would block the view. There is a path here where this line goes through, but there is a clump of trees here that would block the sight line. We have submitted a waiver for that location because it's off the property line. James in his report mentioned that may not be needed, so that would be a point of discussion. We've done test pits and everything. This does not require state subdivision approval either. The lots are well over 5 acres, and only approval it needs is the town review. And that wraps up the whole application, and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Bob?
Al, go ahead. You're muted.
Sorry. Scott, I think you alluded to it, but just confirm the location of the driveway is predicated on sight lines and things like that?
Correct.
The reason I ask is, sometimes shared driveways can be troublesome, but in this case, you don't feel there's a way to avoid that?
No, if we come over here, if we were to put one on the, let me get that into focus here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you're sort of in between.
So if we were to place a driveway along this frontage, you lose your sight fairly quickly on this corner.
Okay,
Then we'd still have good sight for this one, obviously, but we looked at that and there's just no way to get that 250 feet of frontage. And
the site.
250 feet sight line.
Yeah, okay.
And this location, we're about 40, 50 feet as a shared, and then it will split off and go over, and this will split off.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's not terrible, but if we could avoid it, fine, but I think it's a safety issue, so I think, you know, it looks good to me.
And there is a proposed easement, of course, for lot 8-1's driveway going across 8-11 to get to the site.
Okay. And note just for that, I believe the final determination of the planning board requires a town of Northwood driveway permit for the application, and that's the purview of the road agent. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Any other board member who has questions?
I have a question for James. You want me to wait on that?
As far as this, it's for this application?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on his number 3, BLA lot dimensions, it says that section 7-C:1 of the Northwood Development, blah, 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 permits non-conforming lots to be altered only if it brings the lot closer to conformance. What did we do to lot 7 to make it closer to non-conformance or closer to conformance?
I think we've typically applied that to, if it does, it can't make it worse.
That is what it says, though.
If we want
I'm reading
to
your
be,
words here.
yeah, I understand, Tim. I understand you're quoting and I put it in quotes. I think if we want to be very strict about that it must get closer to conformance, then lot 7 would need to get bigger. And we could ask Mr. Frankwitz if he could find a way to add 233 square feet to lot 7 instead of 232, and that would satisfy that definition.
Okay, I'm just kind of looking at it where the owners loan all of the land. I was just kind of wondering why they didn't use that lot 7 to make, I don't know, 8-1 big enough so that they could have 2 driveways and improve the sight line on that middle piece of land. Just a question.
Well,
not following.
The non-conforming lot is lot 7. So that's not an issue of improving the, lot 7 is the little one. So it's not an issue of improving the site distance by moving property from 7 to 8. 7's issue is that it's too small by quite a bit.
I understand that totally. My point being, or the point I'm trying to make is that where the owner seems to own all 3 lots.
No.
Why didn't they use, no? They don't?
No.
Oh, all right, never mind then. Thank you.
Lot 7 is a different owner.
So, but I don't think we improved lot 7 at all.
No, but I don't think we're changing any lot 7.
That isn't what the law says.
Yes. Aside from the lot lines, there is no area change. Okay, other questions for the board or comments?
Well, Bob, it's Joe.
Go ahead, Joe.
As I drive this road 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, so I guess I'm pretty familiar with it. But the minor change Tim is referring to, Tim, if you saw, it's almost insignificant. You have a point, but it's not like a radical alteration of the small lot. It's hard to see where anybody would notice the difference afterwards. This is just a matter of measurements. But I see the point about the driveway. It is a dicey corner. And I would simply agree with I know Hal had a little consideration there, but this necessitates, if somebody's going to use this location, an access right as the driveway is being proposed at that corner so that you can see in both directions. I would say that it's really critical. If it was otherwise, this would not be a functional situation. Let's say you got a downhill coming from the north, a serious downhill. When it's icy in the winter, you want to be able to see what's going on, really, and you can't quite see around the corner. In the wintertime, it is better because the foliage is gone, but the person coming out of that driveway needs to be able to see both directions. And I think this driveway location accomplishes that. I'm not concerned about the shared driveway part of it. I imagine there'll be something in writing that requires them to get along in the future. So, you know, it'll work.
I think some of you are missing my point on the little issue. So I don't have a problem with the whole plan, not at all. But it seems to me that we're not following RSA 36, excuse me, not RSA, Section 7C1 of Northwood Development Ordinance unless we give him a waiver. And I would vote for a waiver right away. But he needs a waiver, really, honestly, to get by that fact that he has not changed that lot to make it more conforming.
So,
well, I might go along with Tim on that.
And so then the next guy says, well, look at, you did it over there. You didn't make him get a waiver. So why do I have to?
So point of clarification, that provision is in the zoning ordinance. So you cannot provide a waiver. It would require a variance. But to the point, you need to, if you want to read that closely and strictly and apply it according to your interpretation of the letter, the thing that is non-conforming about that lot is that it's too small. So if you say this lot must be improved as it relates to the thing that is non-conforming, then it sounds to me you are saying in order to comply with that, it cannot stay the same size, it must get bigger. And if we want to apply that, then I would say if Mr. Frankowitz finds a way to add 1 square foot to that property, he has met the letter of that provision.
I agree with that, but you keep saying that I'm saying. I'm not saying anything, James. Section 7C1 says, not Tim.
Tim, I understand what it says. Okay. What I'm saying is how it has been applied in the past is if it's not getting worse, it's fine. If you as the board choose to read that literally and say how it has been applied is wrong, and we are going to apply it this way, you have that purview, and you can make that request.
Okay.
Well, James, just to come back on that, I was maybe agreeing with Tim, but I think your point is well taken. Just to satisfy the technicality here, and we could, with, as you say, a square foot difference, but that gets to be silly. I think remaining the same is of no deleterious consequence to the situation. And that's what it is. It's remaining the same. The bigger property can afford to have that little jog in it. Anyway.
And Tim, your point is well taken that I understand you prefer to do exactly what it says and you prefer for it to say exactly what you intend to do. If that is language that you would like to discuss further at a later point this year about zoning amendments so that the way it is implemented and exactly what it reads are the same, we can add that to a list.
I think we should.
Yeah. That being said, we could either do a sense of the board. I don't know if we need to do a vote on that. Is there a sense of the board that we cannot continue this case because we need a variance to comply with whatever the section is that Tim mentioned.
C1.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, before
do we need?
If you are going to require, I think the way to phrase that is, would you require strict compliance by making it bigger? Because the applicant could choose to get the variance so they don't have to, or they could revise the plan that you have in front of you prior to this case coming
Can I make
back.
a suggestion, Bob?
Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
So I'd like to back off, which is not my nature, and go ahead with this and continue this as it is.
Okay.
If the board will agree that we're going to have a discussion about it at a later issue.
Sure. I don't have any problem with that.
Is that fair enough?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll agree to that.
I don't have any problem with that. It's, yeah, I mean, your point is well taken. That's what we're here for, is interpretation of the rules that the town has adopted, and that's one interpretation. Go ahead, Hal.
Just a related question. I recollect when Mr. Frankowitz did the Green Street alteration there, he was careful to keep the amount of land swapped from one to the other exactly the same. Is there some principle that drives that?
Yes.
Or is it just practice?
I could answer that one. If I'm asking my neighbor to give me 50 square feet, and on the front of my property, and I give them 50 square feet on the back of their property, it's an equal exchange. So there's not necessarily any money.
I get you. Okay, so
that may or may not be the case in this case.
Okay.
From that's the way I've always viewed it. Mr. Frankowitz wants to speak. Go ahead.
There is a reason for that. DES has that rule that if you do a lot line adjustment and it's exchanging the exact same, like in this case, and just like McLaren where I was in a couple months ago,
right?
If you exchange the exact amount of land and it's not being used to build on, you don't need state subdivision approval. So to avoid that, you keep it the same amount. If we went one more foot to lot 8 or lot 7, that may trigger a DES review because we're not equal.
Okay, so that can be part of our discussion when Tim brings it up at a later meeting then. Okay, good to know.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay. That's also probably even a better reason than the one I gave. Okay, other questions from the board on this? Hearing none. Seeing as it's 10 after 9, at this point, I will open public comment to abutters. If they would like to speak on this case, just please state your name when you do so and direct your comments to the chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is Alan Wilkinson, AKA Ted, on the screen. I was confused earlier on when I heard the preamble to the previous 2 applications for the same site. I thought you were talking about this one. Quick the backstory here. And first of all, thank you, Tim, for agreeing to go forward. When my late wife and I purchased that 0.66 acre parcel, that is lot 7, 21 years ago, it was a dirt road. And then the town graded and filled, they regraded the corner. So obviously the road frontage will have been altered based on old plans, new plans. And so I know that the surveyors did an extra careful job researching the whole 9 yards and figuring out exactly how much frontage the Brackets had just purchased. I don't know for a fact what the real estate agent had represented the frontage, likely frontage to be. I'm not insinuating anything nefarious. It's just that come to find out the lot was a little bigger than the agent had suggested by 3-4 acres. But as has been pointed out, son of a gun, there are only like 291 feet of frontage. Now, I've known the Brackets for years. They're friends and neighbors, and I'm really pleased that they're the ones who bought that piece of land. Years ago, the planning board was wise enough to include that low wetland area as part of the designated prime wetland area in Northwood. It's beautiful down there. And if any board members haven't yet been there, please take the time. You easily park between the sharp corner and my red barn. Just walk down gradient until you find the water. It's a wonderful parcel. A deer yard up there and the turkeys roost, and it's really nice. And the Brackets really appreciate that, and it's their intent, absolutely, to keep that whole lower portion pristine and preserved. My late wife was concerned until the day she died that a developer would buy that parcel and come in and create frontage, quote unquote, and put in as many houses as possible. So when, come to find out, the Brackets came up just a few feet short, it seemed like a simple thing to do for us to do that little butterfly flip-flop, because I absolutely want the Brackets to be the ones who go forward and do their proposed development there. That's how all of that came to pass.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. Okay, other abutters who would like to speak on this application? Okay, I'll open it to any member of the public who would like to speak on this application. Going once, going twice. Okay. At this time, I'll close public comment, subject to reopening as needed in the future. Keeping in mind that planning board hears applications on a 2-meeting process. This is the first meeting to be heard. We can take public comments in writing, email, by whatever means of communication, and due by the next meeting. Anything else from the board? Questions for the applicant? Okay. I would, trying to think what we have on the 25th so far. We have Chestnut and Cape.
25th or the 22nd?
Or sorry, the 22nd. My apologies.
It would be the 22nd, Mr. Chair. I think since this one's a relatively simple
I don't
one,
think we have too much.
I would suggest moving it to the 8th.
Okay.
Before we continue it, could we have a discussion about the waiver, if that's needed or not, or?
Sure.
So we applied for the waiver.
Yep. Let me deal with that. Let me pull that up.
So as this is going to be another, the very details of what the ordinance says. Mr. Frankowitz included it in his waiver request. I added the language to the staff report. The section reads that the driveway shall follow the lot line to the maximum extent possible, which, that language seems to allow some deviation for good cause. I simply suggest that the board have some discussion about whether the waiver is necessary in this case or not. Obviously, that would be somewhat precedent setting once you get to deciding how much to the maximum extent possible covers before you need the waiver request. I certainly don't have an objection to granting the waiver if the board deems it is necessary. I did have a comment from Mr. Frankowitz to amend the note to make it clear that the location of the driveway is what the waiver is related to, because that provision also limits a shared driveway to 2 houses, no more than 2 houses. So making it clear that that provision is not being waived, only the location. And then, the standard request of once the board has approved a waiver, adding that date to the note on the plan.
myself, I would prefer to have the waiver to cover decisions we made based on it. That's just my preference. It is obvious that the driveway is not following the lot line to the maximum extent possible, but that would also change the location of the driveway. So I think it behooves us to request of the applicant to request the waiver, which he has already done. So, anyone else have questions, comments on whether we need the waiver or not?
I agree with you, Bob, on it. I mean, I think that's just the formality is worth noting, and it makes it clearer what's being done.
Yep. Anyone else?
I agree with the waiver. There's more there about the waiver being for just, or the driveway being for just 2 principal residences. That's on his number 1 request B. I'm far more interested, though, that we make sure that the easement is done correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if we're clear that the waiver is in terms of just the one part, the following of the lot line, I'm comfortable.
Yep. Okay. So when you have requested it, I'm a little hesitant to, well, we don't have any abutters. Usually I don't like acting on a waiver on the first night, but
well, they have a sense of the board.
Yeah, we have a sense of the board, so we can continue with that until the next time for the 8th. So, yeah, let me, go ahead.
Well, I just, to clarify or to understand a little better, what Hal's reference or the concern.
Yeah, let me explain. Yeah,
well, you said about the driveway adhering to the following the lot line.
Right. That's the issue.
Why would that be a concern anyway?
Well, because that's what the ordinance says. But as Tim said, there's several components to this ordinance.
Right.
And if we're going to grant a waiver, I don't have a problem granting a waiver to say that in this case it's okay not to follow the lot line. But I do have a problem with granting a general waiver to that whole provision, which says, oh, well, maybe you could have multiple houses later on or something like that. I just want it to be strictly to say we agree you don't have to follow the lot line for the driveway.
This is another.
I'm left. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. Just to say, I guess I'm a little clouded on this. Maybe, and as we come up to it again next month, I'm not sure where I see an alternative issue developing later. If it's, I guess I'm just not quite clear why the concern. I follow part of what you said, but I'll look at this again. Maybe I'm missing something here where it would be a concern.
It says on B on the notes that we got from the planner. It says this section also stipulates that a shared driveway cannot serve more than 2 principal residents. So we do not want to waive that particular section of section 303B1.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly it.
The problem is that paragraph 1 says 2 different things.
Right. So just as a note to town staff, that might be something we want to split out in our next update of the ordinance. This is also a case of good planning board practice in that we discuss an item and instead of following along with momentum, of the evening, put it off, think about the language that we want to use, and then bring that up the next time. So that is definitely a case for this tonight. Okay, so we have a sense of the board on this. We'll bring it up on the 8th. I would, unless somebody else has anything else to bring up for this application.
The only thing that I would mention, Mr. Frankowitz mentioned having the easement language. I didn't see it in the submission packet, so if we could have a copy of that to be part of the record. And I do want to note that I have requirements for recording of that easement language at the same time as recording the plat as conditions of approval, just to make sure it gets followed up on.
Yeah, Hal?
I just have one other question. I'm not sure, it's not an issue for me, but I want to just make sure we've covered this for Scott. The back part of the property is not surveyed, and in many cases we have said, no need to survey, just put the contours on based on the geographic information you get from the federal government. Do we need a waiver for that also, to say that?
Looks like he has it. He's got the contours on the sheet that's shown.
Oh, Scott, did you survey the whole thing? Because it says, I thought on the drawing that you did not survey the whole back area.
We did a full boundary survey, and then where this line is, it's the limit of topographic survey.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Bob.
This back here is LiDAR, and we're gonna,
A lot of times in the past, we just said, well, for an area that isn't of real interest to us, just plop in what you can pull off the computer graphics, for the USGA.
I believe that's a waiver.
Yeah, so maybe just belts and suspenders on that. That should be a waiver we consider next time too.
Yep, agreed.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time, Scott. I'm just trying to make sure
we're being consistent. Agreed. Okay, I would entertain a motion that this application does not have a regional impact.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion, hearing none. All, can't do that. Susan, could do a roll call vote, please.
Tim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay. And I would consider a motion to continue cases 21-5 and 21-6 to April 8th.
So moved.
Flip a coin.
I believe that was, well, I'll give the motion to Ms. Baldwin and the second to Ms. Smith. I think I got that close, if not right.
Close.
Okay. Discussion? Hearing none. Susan can do a roll call vote, please. No?
Went home.
Oh,
You hear, Susan?
did we lose Hal?
I don't think we lost Hal. I don't know who we lost for a little bit, but we need to do a roll call vote on continuing
Right.
April.
We
8th.
didn't hear you.
Oh, you didn't hear me?
No, we didn't hear Susan.
Okay,
Oh,
yes, we
okay.
didn't hear Susan.
Okay, Hal,
Yes.
okay, Betty,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay. We'll see you on the 8th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That figures I closed too many things. What else do we have on the agenda for internal business? Anything? Okay. You didn't think so? Let's add I don't want to necessarily schedule it now, but I want to add to the wish list the discussion of that Tim brought up with the interpretation and the enforcement of the condo bit. At some point, I think what I'd like to do, James and Linda, is to, and maybe Walter, is talk about that, where that would be appropriate to insert, because I was looking at the ordinances and I can't really find an appropriate place to stick that in without making it stick out like a sore thumb, but maybe we can take a look. So, anything else anybody needs to bring up tonight?
No, the only thing that I would say, yeah, I think the discussion regarding the non-conforming use is, you know, something that should be relatively easy to schedule and have. That lives in zoning, so that's something that we have been in the habit of revisiting every year.
Right.
When somebody else mentioned, well, that paragraph 1 that has both follow the lot line and you can't serve more than 2 houses, that lives in the subdivision regulations. And those we have not updated on an annual basis. And we have not gone back to either the site plan or subdivision regulations since I've been here, since 2017. I think the effective date of at least one of them is 2011 or 2012.
Right.
So if you would like to pick one of those to work on this year, that could be a manageable project, but I don't think it would be possible to open up both of those other documents to, you know, a full policy audit. So if you'd like to look at provisions of those, either think about very specific things so that we can direct that work, or think about which one is more important to address sooner.
Yep. Sounds good. We'll keep that in mind. Maybe we can talk about scheduling that in the April 8th meeting. Okay. Anything else tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Read my mind. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, possibly. Okay, we're adjourned at 9:28. Thank you all.
Good night.